What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Cullen's Music Corner. I'm Cullen The Great. Today I'm bringing you another one of my music business tips and tricks videos. One of the most common questions I get asked, one of the most common questions an up-and-coming musician has is, how do I get my music on Apple Music, iTunes, Spotify, really any of the big streaming services out there? I know when we first started out, everybody goes to SoundCloud, YouTube. YouTube is still a huge streaming service that you want to grow and work on, but you want to grow your channel and have that separate from your other streaming services. Took me quite a while to understand how the whole process went down, so I'm going to try and explain it to you guys and break it down as easy as possible. The way artists get their music into these online streaming services is through distribution services. Now, major label artists who are signed to Sony, people in RCA, Warner Music, they have major label distribution, major distribution companies that get their music shipped worldwide. They help with the CD printing, the promoting, etc. of a song, of an album. So you got to understand that when you're a musician starting out, there's no way that you're going to have access to the same stuff that they do. But in an ever-changing industry, a DIY industry, there are a bunch of services that allow underground musicians such as myself to get their music on these streaming services and still reap the benefits that these major label artists do. It's through a process called independent distribution services. So basically the same thing, except these are independent companies separate from major labels. They work on their own and they distribute your music to these streaming places such as Spotify, Apple, iTunes, etc. There's a couple different choices. Some of the more popular ones are Tunecore, CD Baby, Distrokid. Today in this video, we're going to be talking about Tunecore and Distrokid. Those are really the two most popular independent distribution services. And those are the two that I have personal experience with, extensive experience with both. So I'm going to kind of break it down a little bit with the pros and the cons of each, which one I recommend and why. To start it off, we're going to talk about Distrokid. Distrokid is probably the most popular one for musicians just starting out. They have a really good payment process. It's a one-time payment and you get a year-long subscription. It's not very much money. I think it's maybe $40-50 depending on which tier you get. So they do have a multi-tier pricing system. The more money you spend, obviously the more features and attractions you get on your account, the more things you're able to do. But for those starting out, the most basic tier will get you where you need to go. And that's what's really nice about Distrokid is, like I said, it's a one-time payment. You upload your music, and of course they have extras like you can pay for Shazam, you can pay for a store maximizer, which will automatically upload your music to any new betas that come through. Anytime there's something updated, it'll automatically send your music that way. So you can do a couple other things on there, but that's if you choose to. So it's not like a requirement. You don't have to do that when uploading your music. It's more of a promotional tactic. What's really cool about Distrokid too is you can upload your lyrics and do synced lyrics. So like on Apple Music, they just launched, I believe it was earlier this year, maybe it was late last year, how you could see lyrics and see them live as the music's going and you're listening to your music. Well, with Distrokid, you can easily upload your lyrics and sync them, so that way when people are listening to your music on Apple Music and they go to see your lyrics, it'll all pop up and it'll be synced to the way you sync it. It's a very easy synchronization process. It's just a matter of pressing and holding down spacebar until the end of the bar. If that's one thing that you're really looking for in a independent distribution service, is to get your music on these streaming platforms, but to also have your lyrics readily available, Distrokid might not be a bad idea for you. Another cool thing is they have a bunch of promotional and marketing tactics that go along with your account and along with your subscription. One of which is really cool. It's called the Wheel of Playlist. You basically just spin a wheel. It's kind of like the Wheel of Fortune, whatever number you land on, they're gonna set you in a Spotify playlist at that number. So it's just another way that people can hear your music. I'm not sure how many people actually listen to that playlist. I'm sure there's quite a few artists featured on there, so probably doesn't get a whole bunch of listens, but it's always nice to be featured in playlists because you never know when the right person's gonna hear your music. Probably one of my favorite things about Distrokid, one of the reasons why it is so popular, is it has a very easy payment distribution system set up. So for example, if I collaborated on a song with another artist and I was uploading it under my account on Spotify and Apple Music, they would still get a portion of the royalties based off of Distrokid's payment distribution. So it's really, really cool for an engineer, somebody that's got a home studio, a producer, somebody that makes a beat for you. You can, as long as they have a Distrokid account, you can type in their email address and set how much percentage of the song royalties you want going to them. So it's really cool for underground musicians that are collaborating a lot together to go with Distrokid because you can split up those profits. A few cons with Distrokid is it has very, very slow payment times. So you're looking at about a 2 to 3 month delay on your payment from when your track drops. So let's say you had a really good month in June and you know you have tens of thousands of streams. So you should be getting a decent check in your bank on Distrokid. You're not gonna see any of that money until 2 or 3 months down the road. And now this all depends on the streaming service. I do know that Apple Music maybe runs about a month to a month and a half behind the drop date, and Spotify is about 2 to 3 months behind the drop date. So it just kind of depends how quickly these companies are getting these royalties out and how fast they're paying their artists. But it's no longer, I haven't seen it any longer for the big three than 3 months. So, and it's like that at every independent distribution service. And we'll talk more about that when we talk about Tunecore. Another thing about Distrokid that's kind of a con is it's very plain and it's very basic. When it pulls up the screen, it's just the list of all your songs and all the stores that they're in. So there's not a whole lot going on, which if you're not into all the extras and the features and the extra artist services that come with these distribution companies, then that might be a pro for you rather than a con. But I like having the options. I like having those extras. I like having the ability to go through all the different tabs and find what I'm looking for rather than have to dig and search to find a promotional tactic that I'm looking to do. So really that's about it for the pros and cons on Tunecore. There is a whole bunch more and I could talk a lot about these independent distribution companies, but we're gonna move on to Tunecore now. And comparing Tunecore to Distrokid, one of the first things that comes up in conversation is the payment. So I guess we'll start with the cons on Tunecore because this is kind of a big deal. With Tunecore, it is not a one-time payment like Distrokid is, so you do not pay X amount of dollars for a full year subscription. You do pay per song, per album, and the prices depend on if it's an album or if it's a single. So if you're uploading a single, it's $9.99 for a distribution credit, and if you're uploading an album, I believe it's either $49.99 or $69.99 to upload your album. But when you upload an album, you can do up to 20 tracks on that album. So realistically, it drops the price down per single if that's really what you're going for. The only other con, again, is going to be the slow payment. Similar to Distrokid, it's going to have a few month delay from the initial track drop. There's just really no way around it. So you're going to have to really keep an eye on your streams and then kind of date when you got paid and understand the correlation between the two, which leads us into the pros of Tunecore. Is Tunecore, similar to Distrokid, it's a lot more user-friendly on Tunecore, but Tunecore lets you break down by store, by month, by song, how much you were paid. Now this can get very intense. You can have pages and pages and pages and pages of size 6 font to read through. But if you were really trying to dive in depth, it'll pull up an entire list of the countries, the states, where your music was played, what songs were played, how much they were played, how much money you made from each individual track. So it's a lot easier to track your finances and understand how much money your streams are making you versus Distrokid. Although Distrokid does have a similar feature, it's not as intuitive as the one on Tunecore. Tunecore is also a lot more professional. As soon as you open up the web page, you can tell a major difference between Tunecore and Distrokid. Tunecore always highlights some of their featured artists that are on there. Of course, one of the most famous artists from Tunecore is going to be Russ. He says it several times in his songs. He works with Tunecore. He's an independent artist. He isn't signed to a label. And it just goes to show you that you can make it as a musician in this world using these independent streaming services. You don't need those big corporations to reach into your pocket and try and penny pinch everywhere that they can. And it's very user friendly. I think it's very user friendly. It has a bunch of, like I said earlier, it has a bunch of different tabs that you can go into and you can look. It's got social media area, financial breakdowns. It has a blog that you can look up and look into. And then it also has an artist services section. So if you go into this artist services section, there's going to be a bunch of different companies listed kind of in 3 steps. Before your release, during your release, or the date of your release, and then after your release. So it really helps you kind of plan a marketing strategy. Some of the before the releases that you can do is they have companies you can send your tracks off to get mastered and mixed. And they also have a fan review, which if any of you have never done a fan review before, I definitely recommend going on one of these pages. I've done some on Reverb Nation before. I haven't done one on Tunecore before, so it'd be interesting to see how it is. If you guys have done one before, go ahead, let me know down in the comments how it is, how it works. I'd be interested to hear it. But it's always worth it to get outside opinions on your music before you release it. If there's any last minute tweaks that you can maybe make that will make the track sound better overall. But that's kind of it for the pros and cons of Tunecore. Comparing the two, after using the two for 5+ years, I am going to have to say personally I like Tunecore better than I like Distrokid, for the sole fact that it is more professional. There's a lot more that goes into it. Although you have to pay for every song, it's worth what you get. And if you're at that level where your music is bringing in quite the amount of streams, if you're actually making a lot of money from your music, then you might want to switch over to Tunecore. It's much more intuitive. There's a lot more promotional and marketing abilities that you can do with this independent company. They have a section in that artist services where you can get vinyls made, you can get CDs made. They have radio airplay links and companies that can shoot your music out through there. I have not found anything like that through Distrokid. And granted, I'm only on the 2nd tier. I have not upgraded to the full tier, the multi-artist tier, the label tier as it's called, which you might have the ability to do that there. I'm not 100% sure. But Distrokid is good for those musicians just starting out. You don't have a lot of money, but you want to get your music out there and heard and look a little bit more professional than just getting it uploaded to SoundCloud. Distrokid might be the way for you to go. If you're more tenured, if you're a little more tenured in the industry and you want a more professional look, a more professional way to get your music out there, then Tunecore is what I would recommend for you. I use Distrokid. I have another one of my artists that use Tunecore. I definitely recommend Tunecore over everything. That just about does it for this video. I hope you guys found some useful information in here. I hope you know now how to get your music on iTunes, Apple Music, and Spotify, and I hope you're bringing in the streams and collecting them royalties. So thank you guys again so much for stopping by. Don't forget to follow me on socials, my Instagram at Kyle.Cullen8, my Twitter handle at Cullen The Great _, and of course on all streaming services like we just talked about, you can find me under Cullen The Great. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. Till next time, peace. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button.